My parents cut me off for my birthday, so I gave them the ultimate consequence. On February 18th, my 20th birthday, my parents called while I was walking to my morning lecture. My mom said happy birthday, then immediately launched into how I was relying on them too much and needed to experience the real world. They'd pay my rent and phone until the end of February, then I was completely on my own. My dad added they still loved me, but this would teach me independence. I had 11 days to figure out my entire life. I begged them to reconsider, explaining I was mid-exam season with no time to find work. They said real adults handle pressure and hung up. I stood there on the sidewalk, phone in hand, watching other students walk past me to class. Everything felt surreal. I ran to student services that afternoon asking for emergency housing since I couldn't afford my flat. They said without proof of being cut off, I didn't qualify for assistance. I emailed my parents begging for a letter confirming they'd stop support so I could apply for emergency funding. They replied that providing documentation would defeat the purpose of learning independence. They actually wrote that helping me get help wasn't helping. I spent 3 days calling every landlord in town looking for something I could afford on my non-existent income. They all wanted deposits, references, and proof of employment. I applied for 20 jobs and got nothing because everyone could tell I was desperate. My roommate Jess found me crying over my laptop trying to figure out how to survive on the $400 in my account. She asked what happened and I explained everything. She said that was insane and called her mom, who was a social worker. Her mom said what my parents did might violate education support laws if they'd claimed me as a dependent. That gave me an idea. My uncle Craig was an accountant who did my parents' taxes. He'd always been kind to me, sneaking me money for textbooks when my parents said I should get them from the library. I called him explaining my situation and asked if he knew anything about their finances that might help me. He went quiet, then said he'd look into something and call me back. 2 days later, Craig called asking for my student email and registration numbers. He'd found something interesting. My parents had been claiming education tax credits for me for 3 years, worth about £8,000 annually. They'd also applied for and received a parent learning allowance from my dad's company, specifically meant to support children in university. Another £5,000 a year. They'd been collecting £13,000 yearly to support my education while only spending £8,000 on my actual expenses. Craig had copies of everything because he'd warned them this was tax fraud if they weren't using the money for my education. They'd assured him it all went to me. The kicker was they'd already filed for this year's credits in January, claiming they'd be supporting me through my entire third year. Craig gave me copies of everything and advised me to contact my university's legal aid. I met with a legal aid advisor who looked at the documents and immediately called the university's financial office. Within hours, I had emergency funding approved and temporary campus housing. The university's lawyer sent my parents a formal letter stating they were obligated to provide the support they'd claimed on taxes or face investigation for education benefit fraud. My parents called me screaming that I'd involved their personal finances. I said independent adults handle their own problems, and this was me handling mine. My mom cried that they just wanted me to learn life skills. I said I'd learned that when someone commits tax fraud, there are consequences. My dad threatened to cut me off from the family entirely. I reminded him they'd already done that, but still wanted the financial benefits of having a student daughter. The university contacted my dad's employer about the parent learning allowance misuse. His company launched an investigation since he'd been claiming the benefit while not providing the support it was meant for. He had to pay back 3 years of allowances and got formally reprimanded. The tax office started investigating their education credit claims. Craig testified that he'd advised them repeatedly that the money had to go toward education expenses, and they'd assured him in writing it did. My parents had to pay back thousands in false credits plus penalties. Months later at my graduation, my parents showed up acting like nothing had happened, phones out ready for photos. My mom waved me over with that fake smile she uses when other people are watching. I turned and walked straight to Craig and Jess's family. My mom called my name, voice getting sharper each time. I kept walking toward the people who actually showed up when I needed help. Behind me, I could hear my dad saying something about me being dramatic. Jess's mom stepped forward when my parents tried to approach our group. She told them clearly this celebration was for people who actually supported me through university, not people who cut me off and committed fraud. Other families stopped their conversations to watch. My mom's smile wavered. My dad's face went red and he announced loudly they were my parents and had every right to be here. The ceremony coordinator approached with a security guard, asking if there was a problem. My parents transformed instantly, putting on wounded victim faces. Uncle Craig calmly pulled out his phone and offered to show the coordinator the tax documents on his screen, proving they'd collected $13,000 yearly while abandoning me. The security guard turned to my parents and asked them to leave the ceremony immediately.